Welcome to the Paranormal Zone. Today we have a special guest, and my co-host is on today. Hey, Bob, how are we doing today?
Good, Tom. How are you?
I'm wonderful. So today we have a very special guest, Bob. I would like to introduce her today. So take it away, Bob.
Thanks. Yeah, the guest today is really spectacular. In the interest of full disclosure, I've known this young lady for quite a number of years. She is absolutely one of the best mediums in New England. I dare to say maybe in the United States. That might bring some emails, but certainly in New England, she's the best medium I've ever worked with. I've had the pleasure of working with this medium for over 20 years, and she's been on many cases with me. So let's get right to it. Debbie Knowles, welcome to the Paranormal Zone.
Hi, Bob. Nice to be with you this
morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Welcome, Debbie.
One of the things that we always get asked, I guess, is how did you get interested in mediumship?
So it's such an interesting question. I got interested in mediumship probably when I was around 10 years old, but I knew I was able to see things from the tender young age of 2. People say, how do you remember that when you were 2 years old? I just do. And when I was around 10, I really wanted to kind of perfect it in a way. So I started playing, with tarot cards, and that was from a friend of mine's mom's house that I took. I started using regular decks of cards and realizing I was getting information subconsciously when I would even use decks of cards, along with being able to see spirit. So I knew that I wanted to go in that direction. I just didn't know, without having Google or the internet, on how to go about doing that. So I had to kind of perfect it on my own, if that makes sense.
It does. Do you think, Debbie, that angels and spirits identify people that have the gift you have at an early age?
Yes, and that's a very common question because we have this light over our heads that show we are these intuitive light workers, or that you have a high intuition, and it's almost as if you have this light over your head, like coal miners. They would wear those helmets with a flashlight on it. That's kind of what it looks like. So when I see people that have that light on them, I know that they're very much aware of spirit, energies around them, because it's not just spirit, there's all types of energies on the other side, but they are aware of it. So it's like this light we have above our heads. That's visual.
So, Debbie, I have a question for you real quick.
Yeah.
I don't know. I work with a lot of different psychics, and we've done a couple things together at the Sandown meeting house, and I think the train station. But I didn't know this. I always had my own abilities. I don't consider myself a psychic, a medium, or anything. I channel and I can sense things, okay? But what I didn't know was, until 6 years ago, I knew my mother's side of the family had abilities. So I'm just leading into this question, but she shut her abilities off. My father never liked what I did because he was the sort of Catholic. We'll call him the sort of Catholic. But when he passed away, it was my job and my mother's job to clean out his barbershop. I think, Bob, you've heard this story. Now, when you ask me to clean something out, I'm the last guy you want cleaned out, okay? Because I go clean out your house, Debbie, I might find 3 bags of trash, and the rest of it will find its way either to the secondhand store, my storage unit, or something else, because I don't like throwing things away, especially if they got historical, not financial value, but historical value to the bigger picture of the world we live in, okay?
Right.
So, going through my father's desk, I found astrological charts and two tarot decks, one being a wooden deck.
Wow.
Now, I haven't seen a wooden deck. I imagine my father there was a big difference, in about a 19-year difference between my mother and father. So, I mean, he died in his 80s. My mother was still alive. She's still alive today, thank God. But did you have that with your own family? that you might have found out later on, or maybe as a kid, did your abilities come generational, or were they just special to you?
So it's a great question. And it's something I don't take lightly, and I will say this on credit here. My grandmother on my mom's side, she could see certain things, but never really told people about it. So when I started seeing it and telling her about it and telling her things only she would know, it was like monumental. And she wouldn't admit it, but it was as if we had this understanding that she could do the same thing, but it really wasn't something she was open about at the time, because in the 70s, you weren't open about stuff like that. And then my dad's sister, it was the same way, had privately asked me, can you really do this? Are you really telling me the truth that you can do this? And I said, yes. And she said, I'm going to tell you a secret. I can do it too. And again, that was like in the early 80s. But again, it was as a secret. Do you know what I'm saying? So
right.
It's
that generational thing, I think, that happened in the late 60s because of what happened with, we know what happened in 68, 69.
Yes.
And the negative, even though there was some negativity that happened there, but I wasn't alive back then. I'm only 74, as you know.
Yes.
But there was a lot of positive things that came out of both those music festivals in life itself. Mm-hmm. But there was such a negative contour to it that I think it also affected this field, and especially people growing up with psychic ability. So you couldn't even trace your own line.
Right. No, absolutely true. And what's really sad about that is someone who has to live, such as myself in this. I was born and raised Catholic as well, and I had all my sacraments done, and went to CCD, church once a week, went to novenas on Tuesdays. I did the whole thing, and feeling as if it was wrong what I had, and we're not bringing religion into it. What I'm bringing into is how much I had to mask it, because I was raised to, you don't speak about that, you don't bring that up, you don't say that. Because that's not how we were raised, things like that. So very much masking it. So when I turned 10, I had this independence kind of hit me and go, well, I want to start telling people. I want to start sharing that I can do this. I don't give a crap about anybody else. And I started telling friends. I started telling people at school. I even told my priest when they had me do confession before my confirmation. I even told him. So,
How'd the priest take it? Not too well, I gather, right?
Yeah. So it was like I had this independence about me. And then when I hit high school, it really came out. And I was so independent about it. But I got teased and bullied. I was berated because of it. I was basically X'd out, discommunicated, like from the like everything. From my poor family heard about it. My friends, I was a loner. And that is sad.
That sucks.
Simply because I admitted I could do it. And they called me a witch. I was a witch all through high school. So, terrible.
They don't even know what a witch is, actually, if you probably asked them.
Right. And it's like, how can a witch? I don't understand that. But that's really how that was for me. So it was uncomfortable for, elementary, junior year, high school year, for me fighting to be myself. In a world that didn't quite understand it. I didn't quite understand it either. Back then, again, no internet. You only went by how you were raised. You went by what, religion has taught you and what your parents said. You know what I mean? That was it. I had basically no.
And there weren't many books out back then, because I pretty much own any book that came out in the 60s and the 70s in the, paranormal metaphysical. There was only one guy writing at that time.
Wow. See, I wasn't even aware of that either.
And if you brought the books home, they'd probably end up in the trash. Or you'd have to hide them somewhere in your bedroom or something, because they'd end up in the trash.
Or, unfortunately, with things that are mediumship, it got confused as like Satanism or, things that have to be demonic, and it's not like that at all. And is it part of it? Maybe a quarter of it, but it's not the whole part of mediumship. It's completely different. A medium is someone who's all-knowing. That's past, present, future, past lives. That's talking to spirit. That's being clairvoyant. It's having all the sensory. that's what being a medium is. And, talking to spirit, we'll add that to it too. But a medium is open to everything. And so it's a different category. And then a lot of people still looked at it as it was satanic, which was so far from the truth. And that's what it was like I was being forecasted as this Satanist person or someone who did that. And I was so further from the truth. So it hurt a lot, and I let it go for a while. I school did it for me. I kind of threw in the towel because I was so beaten up by admitting I could do those things, and so hurt that I had no support at all, and and my mom will attest to this, I kind of dropped it completely and just went wild for a little bit, and I kind of tried to block it out, partied a lot and did all that stuff. And then all of a sudden it came raging back when I was about 22, 23 years old, where it's like it was pounding on my head. You can't ignore this. This is here. This is it. And that was it.
Yeah.
So,
I think when I've studied witches, because I think that in the world of paranormal, probably the very first introduction, without them knowing it, was witchcraft, if we could call it that. These witches were really healers more than they were magicians, if you will. But the connotation of witchcraft carried over for virtually hundreds and hundreds of years. Mm-hmm. And any time that a child did something, people got nervous because they didn't want them accused. Because we know at the Salem witch trials, many, many women were accused by their husbands of being witches and really were either institutionalized or worse, just because of the accusation. But you wonder, Debbie, how many kids like yourself had this gift and the parents squelled that out by saying, that doesn't exist, you don't have that, there's nobody in the closet, ghosts don't live under your bed. We've heard all of that as children, and most of us have done it to our own children. So we condition very young children to believe it doesn't exist when, in fact, it does.
Right. We call that social conditioning. We tend to believe what we hear, especially if it's instilled in us day after day or moment after moment. It's really tough, and I think it's sad, really, because many who have gifts and to have family members or whomever is in their life on a daily basis who don't believe in it, it's hard to get that support unless you look outside. Yeah, like outside for that support. But it has changed. It has opened up more, obviously, in the years. And there's so much more out there. But like in anything you do, no matter what it is you do for work, you have the fakes and then you have the real ones. So it's something that obviously I deal with it in my field, but you can still have a good electrician and then you can have a bad electrician. It's the same thing. And unfortunately, there's many who don't believe in it. And it's unfortunate because you could do so much good with it. And then the ones who believe in it and have experiences, it's amazing. It's just amazing, So it's the ones who don't believe or have a belief system in other things or other energies are the ones who have been conditioned, or they haven't had their own experience enough to say, I believe that. So that's what I always say, just have an experience and then tell us what you think.
Debbie, that's my favorite thing when I do library talks or historical talks at paranormal talks at historical societies, right? So one day we had this group. I was brought into this local historical society. Make this real quick because you're the show today, but I find this real interesting what you said. So we're doing glass divination, and this guy had no belief in it at all. No belief in it even while I was there. He made cracks and everything else. You probably have to deal with it. I know Bob deals with it. We all deal with it. So we got the glass moving. He says, oh, it's you moving the glass. So I had to bunch of elderly ladies doing this thing with me. They were all doing it the right way. I said, I'm going to remove my hand from the glass. You keep this glass moving, please. I removed my hand. Glass kept moving. He ran out of the building, screeched his tires, and then you heard the police cruisers turn their lights on. Because where I was talking, the Historical Society was right next to the police station. So when he screeched out, what do you think the local police did? So, I mean, there's a guy that I don't know if he got scared because he became a believer overnight, but he certainly got a ticket for it.
Wow. And that's an example
Debbie,
right there.
Debbie, help our listeners to understand what is the difference between a psychic and a medium.
So there is a little bit of a difference with that, and I'm so respectful because I have a few friends who are really good psychics. Psychics can do past, present, future things, and sometimes can channel spirits, sometimes. But usually it's past, present, future things. Usually very good at tarot, but they're also very good at other things as well in terms of using their subconscious to help find missing people or dogs and things like that. But it's a different kind of channeling. But I do know psychics who can simply just do tarot. Mediumship is the all-knowing, which is past, present, future, past lives, talking with spirits, energy, angels. We have this hierarchy of, I want to call it dimensions, if that's the word I can use, that we often work with and can travel in time a little bit as well. And that's a huge thing. And people don't realize that in order to find a missing person, you got to kind of travel in time and see where they began. How do they become missing? It's a big, it's a process. But I have such respect for psychics. I have such respect for mediums because we are used as that vessel in order to get this information in, almost like a cell phone, I like to call it, in order for us to be able to communicate or talk. And paranormal investigators are the same. Where they're vessels in order to talk or communicate with things you just possibly can't see. So when you use that subconscious and it's so focused, the stuff that you receive is just amazing as a psychic or a medium. And our physical bodies are being used as well because psychics and mediums can also feel things from other people. We're being empathic. I know a lot of people sense that they are empathic or say that they are. It's when you feel the needs and sensitivities of other people. So what happens is when you're a psychic or medium, you feel all those things. And paranormal investigators can be very empathic as well.
Right. Yeah, Deb, I always, like Tom, when I make presentations, I like to tell this story because it involves you and something completely outside of what most of us in the paranormal community think about. About 15 years ago, and I'll tell it very quickly, but 15 years ago, a child went missing in Hempstead, New Hampshire, which was the town I was living in at the time. And they organized a search group to look for him on a Saturday morning. I went missing Friday night. Anyways, what they didn't anticipate, Tom, was there were virtually hundreds of people that showed up.
Oh, that's
and
good.
And it got to a point where the investigations from the police officers got to be so complicated, they couldn't allow the volunteers to go to certain areas because they were afraid of tainting evidence, okay? Because at the time, they really weren't optimistic as to the turnout. But anyways, I approached a sergeant, I won't use his name, but from a local police force. Now, they had the National Guard, they had state police from New Hampshire there, Massachusetts showed up. Anyways, I said to them, look, I know this is going to sound bizarre, and I know I'm putting myself in a very bad position by even mentioning this, but I have a friend who is a medium, and she's excellent at what she does. I would like to call her. And, Tom, we've gone through this many times. I anticipated, oh, my God, this guy, we got to watch him. The police officer looked at me and said, you know what? I'm willing to try anything to find this little boy. So I called Debbie. I told Debbie what was going on. She said, give me a few minutes. I'll call you back. The only request the police officer had was any information that Debbie gave me, he wanted me to only report to him and tell him, not to talk about it to anybody else. Anyways, like I said, they weren't optimistic this little child was going to be safe. He had some challenges to deal with. Mm-hmm. He had been gone for well over 24 hours. So anyways, Debbie said to me, I have good news. The child is alive and actually safe. And he is in a house on a street that begins with a C. Debbie told me the name of the street. I don't want to put that out over the air. But right. It began with a C. Well, very long story short, they found this boy that afternoon in a house in Hampstead, New Hampshire, on a street that began with a C, and he was very much alive. He was hiding under a bed and had been there for 2 days. To me, I thought that was just mind-boggling. Because they were virtually searching. Yeah, they were searching marshland. They were searching ponds. And they really didn't assume it was going to turn out good. And yet Debbie knew right where this young boy was. Now, did they respond to that immediately? Not really. I don't think so. I think they took the information. I didn't see them respond to it. Now, maybe behind the scenes they did, because that particular police officer, that sergeant, never really got back to me again. I never talked to him again. But I just thought, wow, how is it that people don't see that and add 1 and 1 to come up with 2?
Right.
I just don't get. I don't see how somebody can say, well, that was a lucky guess.
Right. So this is, thank you for sharing that, Bob. I remember that like it was yesterday. And I work on missing people cases and missing dog cases as well. Cold cases are from years ago. They can be cold case from 5 years ago, because the subconscious is what is used to connect to the energies per se. So as soon as Bob asked me, I'm kind of thinking about this boy connecting with his subconscious. I even said his trail of walking, and I said he lost a shoe, and they found the shoe, and that was pretty awesome. And they found the shoe, so they were kind of on the trail there. And I had also, I think, without giving up too much away, because this is privacy for people as well, but even where he was, we knew it, so it was pretty cool that happened, because we helped find him, and that's amazing, especially when it's a happy story where he was okay. There's other ones that people can say, how do you do that? I don't know. I just kind of connect with that person's subconscious, and it's almost like a focus. And a quick story I'll tell you was from in December. I was in Connecticut, and my kids were home. My kids are grown. They're young, in their 20s, and they lost my dog. And so we all live together, and our dog is going to be 14 years old. He's blind and deaf, and, the whole shebang of a senior dog. So when I got this frantic phone call that they lost the dog, I was 2 hours away, and I helped one of my friends find dogs all across the United States. So after my panic, I just had to stop panicking. And I went in the bathroom, and I locked the door, and I was with 5 other people. So I needed to drown that out. And I connected with my dog. And I called my kids, and I said, put me on speaker. And I was on speaker, and I'm telling my son exactly where to go. And I said, get in the truck, take a right out of the driveway, take a right at the guardrail. You're going to go down to the end of the street. It's a dead end. I said, you're going to get out of the truck, and you're going to ask these people if you could go across the yard, go in the backyard. And he did. And he was with another girl, And the other girl goes, he's not here. He's not here. And I go, no, I know he's there. I said, he's around a lot of dirt. And I just felt dirt all around him. And we live in the woods. I mean, I'm in the woods here. So I'm like, where is this dirt? Well, sure enough, my son tells the girl, you can go back to the truck. I'm going to go look over here. And there was a big, big, big pile of dirt because the construction on the highway, they have these big mounds of dirt there. And my son climbed the mountain of the dirt, and at the top of the mountain, right over the edge, was my dog. So,
wow.
And if he would have crossed the highway, because it was, 40 feet from the highway, he would have been dead. So my son found him, and we found from the moment I calmed down, I was able to connect with my dog's subconscious and saw his route, like what he did, how he got there. And that's how we found him. Mm-hmm. So we were lucky, very, very lucky to find them. Yeah. You can't make that stuff up. You just can't, you know?
Right. I'm sure this is a question, Deb, that has been asked for as long as the universe has been around. And it's a very tough question. It's so hard to do because I don't even know how to ask it. How does a spirit, let's use the boy or the dog again, who is actually contacting you? Is it a loved one of that particular individual that has passed, like a grandmother in the case of the young boy, for example? Or is it really just energy from angel spirits?
So, great question. I like to refer to them as spirit guides. Spirit guides are people who have been registered to you, really. So the moment you're conceived until the moment you come out, spirit guides are your people. And usually they are human beings that used to be here before and have basically went on the same journey as you and can understand you. They are sometimes teachers. They teach you lessons, and sometimes those lessons are really hard. But spirit guides really is kind of, when I'm working, are the ones who are protectors. They're my teachers. They're the ones who help me with all the information. Before I even start working, I ask my spirit guides to take on what is not mine to do. So whatever's not mine to do, find someone else to do it. Because I'm a physical human being. So I have to still be physical at the same time as I'm working. So what ends up happening is the moment I start working and open up my subconscious, the spirit guides are right there and they're ready to go. So they're the ones that I go to first. And then they bring in other people's family members or friends or their pets that have passed or teachers that have passed, like things like that. So spirit guides are with me every single day, and everyone has them. I have 2 of them. I know someone who has 5. So you can ask, well, how come, this one has 2, that one's got 5? It's all of what you need. And you got to trust that if you have 5 of them, how lucky you are, to have 5 of them. So my 2 have been with me since birth, and they teach me lessons sometime and make me stop working because I don't know how to stop. So they teach me those things, and they're bouncers. And I say bouncers in a bar where they'll keep other things, negative things at bay, who want to come after me, and they're the bouncers, and they won't let that happen. So they are different than angels, Bob, and angels are different. So our spirit guides are first. Then it's family and friends. Then it's angels and hierarchy angels. There's like a totem pole from what I've learned. Everyone's experience is different. But from what I've learned is my spirit guides are the first ones. Then it's family and friends and pets and animals and teachers who are passing spirit. Then it's angels, then hierarchy angels. So if my spirit guides can't do anything for me, then the angels step in. And that's when like these beautiful miracles happen. The hierarchy angels come in when that's really needed. So like you hear about Archangel Michael, you hear about Uriel, you hear about all these different hierarchy angels, but they very rarely step in unless they need to. So you got to kind of look at it almost like a business. That's how I try to teach that. So I teach classes on this stuff of how the spirit guides come first, and you got to have a relationship with them, and you got to gain their trust. And you got to know that they're there to teach you and to guide you, because if you think it's just going to be smooth sailing all the time, you are mistaken. Because if there's a lesson you don't learn, they will slap your wrist over and over again by teaching you that lesson until you learn it. So spirit guides can be really tough. Really tough.
How much training?
Yeah.
How much training, Deb, does somebody have to go through to become a, let's say, successful medium?
So, Bob, this is so funny you're saying it, because I just wrote on Facebook last week about people taking classes, and taking classes that are 12 hours long, or they're 3 weeks long, or they're 8 hours long. And I teach a class for about an hour and 15 minutes to an hour and 20 minutes max is what I teach it. The reason why I wrote this post is because I see these people spending $1,000 on these 4-week classes, and they don't really get a lot out of it. And I just get a little perturbed by that. Because it is a simple thing to learn it. It's simple to learn. However, the reason why I wrote this post is because if you take classes from anyone who's psychic, intuitive, mediumship, anything like that, and we're trying to teach you this, if you do not take that information and use it on a daily basis, fit it in your life on a daily basis, practice it on a daily basis, you will lose the momentum. It will shut down, and then you're going to have to go back again and relearn it again. So people think, oh, I took this class, I'm all set. You're not all set, because now you're expected to do it every single day, to practice it every single day for basically 5 to 15 minutes, because you sharpen the brain and you sharpen the subconscious. Your spirit guides start to get used to you. But what happens is a lot of people think they're just going to take a class, get a certificate, they're all done, and wonder why, well, this didn't work for me. Well, did you practice it? No. And I just get very perturbed. You know what I mean? Because you're going to spend all this money and all this time taking these classes without maintaining it. So I explain it's just like a gymnast. A gymnast will do things 100 times over until they perfect the skill. To be a good psychic and medium, you got to keep doing it and perfecting it day after day to be really good. And that's where you say, like, how much time? Bob, they can do this in a week. They can take a class and do it every day for a week and then perfect it. But it's them thinking, oh, the switch is on. I can do this. Do you know what I mean? It's not like that at all. I have to self-preserve, and that's an important word. I have to self-preserve myself, self-maintain myself on a mental, physical, spiritual, financial level in order for me to come every single day and be like the way that I am. If you do not keep balance in your life and practice this, you will lose it. So you can't have all these things going on in your household that's trauma or drama, or not have balance and not taking care of yourself, and then expect to be spot on. It's impossible. So you've got to be able to maintain yourself to be able to do this work. And the many don't. And that's why they don't move from like where they're at. They're still in the beginning stages. Yeah.
Well, that's anything you do in life. I mean, even being a paranormal investigator, as you know, Bob, it isn't taking one class from you and me going to an 099 that you might do or I might do and go buy a bunch of equipment and say, we're paranormal investigators.
Right.
It's the same thing. You're learning every day. I'm a trained historian. I got a degree, in history, early colonial American history. I still learn every day that I do a talk. I learn something new when I'm researching things. We learn every day. If you stop learning, no matter it's the paranormal, metaphysical, psychic, if you think you learned it all, then you got a lot to learn in life. We never stop learning.
That was perfectly said, because no matter how many times you do it, no matter how many investigations you do, no matter how many clients I have, no matter how many lectures Bob does, aren't you supposed to learn something every single time? Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And it blows your mind because it is different every single time. So we have to be on our toes, right?
Hundreds of cases we've done. None of them are alike. I mean, there might be some similarities in areas, but that's about it.
Right. And if we have lives outside of this. All of us have personal lives outside of this. No one's life is perfect. However, when you do things like this, you kind of have to put a hat on and be this person that people are expecting. So you've got to pull this lecture off. You've got to do this investigation to the best of your possibility. I have to always be as spot on as I possibly can be, which is not an easy task. But we still have a private life in the back. And we almost have to be these, like I said, put the hat on and be this person for a while, no matter what is going on in your life. So it shows you how much we put into this. We don't just show up and go, oh, okay, I'm going to do an investigation. No, you have to put everything aside to be able to do that. Because spirit is finicky. Energy and spirit, if they don't want to come through, if they feel you got too much going on your plate, you're going to have a really hard time. And we have proven that. And I know, Tom, you've proven that. In investigation specifically, talking to spirit, if they don't want to talk to you, they're not going to talk to you. No. So you almost have to be likable, and you almost have to be like their friend almost sometimes, and understanding. And like you said, Tom, bringing up things about history where spirit gets really excited about that. And then that's when you make your mark. So we kind of have to leave things outside the door that go with our personal life in order to do this work. And that takes a special person. I really, really think that takes a special person to be able to do things like that. And that's us serving others. So we serve spirit, other dimensions, other energies, and we do that knowing that we can't worry about the rent, or you can't worry about if you're not feeling well. You can't worry about those things when we do that work. It's amazing. I just think that light workers, energy workers, and investigators, and I think all these people as a collective are just amazing people to put ourselves aside to try to educate and teach the public about things that we know how to do. I think it's amazing.
No, it's very amazing.
Debbie, for our listeners that would like to follow up with you,
yes,
we could do it one of two ways. I could give our listeners my email address, and then I could forward their information to you, and you could follow up, or you could do it direct.
That's perfect. That would be great. So if they want to reach out to you, that would be great.
So anybody that wants to contact Debbie can send me an email at paranormalnh@yahoo.com. Provide me with a quick message and your contact information, and I'll pass it along to Debbie. So that gives our listeners an opportunity to at least reach you with questions through a third party. Deb, you've written many books. You've appeared on television. You've worked with the police and everything else. And I'm always interested, of the books that you've authored so far, does one stand out amongst the others in your mind?
Yeah, The Growth of Truth is amazing. So just the title is exactly how it sounds, The Growth of Truth. It is a true story, and we titled it that. I say we because my friend Bonnie Maroth and I co-wrote this book. It's a true story of the heaven and hell of a psychic medium because, can you imagine doing what I do literally 7 days a week? I work 7 days a week of trying to balance the physical and the spiritual. It's not an easy task. So we titled it, The Growth of Truth, a true story of the heaven and hell of a psychic medium. This one, we won awards in Los Angeles, London, England, and New York. It's been amazing. It's still selling. And it's kind of a scary book because it goes along with when I began this at 2 years old into my whole life. And sharing also experiences that could be scary for some people. When readers reach out to me, they always say, I know who that was, that man in the black suit, that man with the black hat. And then they'll share their stories with me. So apparently the man that I've seen my whole life, that is almost like a demonic figure, a lot of people saw. So I know that this person originally exists because other people would share that they saw him too. So, and for them to admit it is huge, because people don't like to admit that. And then what it also did too, as I brought up, my personal life is kind of in there too, because you got to balance the personal with being a medium. It's very hard. So this book really shows the heaven and hell of a psychic medium, and just trying to separate your realistic mind, the reality, which is your conscious mind, and separating the subconscious mind is not an easy feat. So that book is just, it's got my heart. It really does. It has my heart there. And that can be found on Amazon as well.
Okay, so they can go to Amazon. Give us the title again.
The Growth of Truth.
Growth of Truth, and they can buy it on Amazon.
Yes.
Can they? Is there any other place they can buy it?
I don't think so. I think everything has gone technical now, like on technology now.
Sure.
Very rare that you'd ever find it in a store. Yeah. This is different.
So you,
yeah, everything's going technical now.
So Debbie, you don't have any books yourself then, right, to sell?
So I do. I have some here at the house, but these are my special ones because all of my award stickers are on them, so I'm keeping them for myself.
Okay. No, I agree with you on that one.
Yeah. And I have another one, especially with the Titanic anniversary coming up in early April, is called Intentional Spirits, and that's Voices from the Titanic. And that book, we won Los Angeles, Paris, France. We won an honorable mention in Paris, France, and in the London Book Festival, as well as New York. So that also holds a special place in my heart. And that was a tough one for me. There was a lot of emotion with that one. The Growth of Truth wasn't a lot of emotion. It was basically a lot of true stories of spirits and how I dealt with it. The Intentional Spirits, the Voices from the Titanic, that was hard for me. And that it was just very emotional about seeing whoever was present with me showing me what they dealt with. And that was unbelievable. Yeah.
Oh, I bet that was.
Where can they get the Voices of the Titanic?
So that one's also on Amazon. So, and it's Bonnie and I, Bonnie Meroth, Meroth, and Intentional Spirits, and then it says Voices from the Titanic. So that's the title. Okay. Yeah. And we won from four different places. We won awards for that book. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It is. And it's weird when I see it. I don't talk about the books very often. But when I see them, I know that we did the work, and it was outstanding, especially when people think that when you win awards for things, they think, oh, a lot of money is behind there. We didn't win money for the awards. You're being mentioned from a panel of judges, for your work. So to be mentioned in New York, Los Angeles, London, Paris, France is a big deal.
That is. Congratulations.
So it's really kind of cool that happened. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that I would tell our audience about Debbie is that Debbie does very few things for money, although we all have to exist and pay our bills, right, Debbie?
Right.
But she does things out of her heart. She does readings for people because she really cares, and that's a great attribute and a gift beyond the gift of being a medium. Because when you really care about people and you care about their feelings and their loved ones, it doesn't get any better than that, frankly. There is no money that could ever replace that, right, Deb?
Right. So I do have a legal business, and what you're referring to is I do a lot of pro bono work that has to do with, say, finding the dogs, finding missing people. I give a lot to charity in terms of gift certificates and things like that. But I do have a legal business because I have to, I support me and my kids. But I do that, Bob, and it's, of course, it's my decision to do it. It's something that I know I could do it. Time is the only thing that I find I have lack of time sometimes. So I try to do the best I can. A lot of it is through messaging. A lot of it's through emails, as you know, little things like that, just to kind of get me in a place where I go, okay, I have 5 minutes to do that. I've been working on a missing dog now for about a week, but the more we're getting closer and getting closer to them, you know. So, but yeah, I do that. That's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, as Tom Spitalere with the Essex County Ghost Project does, myself, I've done many of them. We never charge for anything, you know, because when people call and say, I've got something in my home, it's scaring my spouse, it's scaring my children, whatever, we do that to help them. And so I think that's a part of the paranormal that doesn't often get talked about or looked at, frankly.
No.
Right. Yeah, because we've done that in Sandown.
Yeah.
Because everybody...
I've done that at Sandown Meeting House. I've done it at libraries where... you know, we'll talk to a group, and I've given readings before for groups of people, up to 80, up to 200. So I've done that before, absolutely. We haven't been able to. COVID kind of stopped that, you know, and then everything just kind of stopped for a little bit. But yeah, so those are things we did in the past. I'm so proud of that we were able to do that for people. I think we helped educate the public on the paranormal, on investigations, things that we know of. We're supposed to share. We're supposed to share information that we know. And a lot of it's through experience. If someone said to me, how do you know about this? And if I didn't know anything about it, I would admit it and say, I have no idea about that at all. I wouldn't fib about it. You know, all of us are honest people. And if you didn't work with that before, you would say you never worked with that before, you know? So, because I think there's a misconception about paranormal or psychic mediums or even people who lecture that sometimes that we could be liars, and we're not. That's one thing, is we're actually kind of brutally honest at times. But we can be looked at as liars if people think we're fake, you know? So that's one thing about us, is we are brutally honest at times.
That's true.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, I've been very fortunate in the 20 years that I've been involved in the paranormal that I've met people like you and Tom, and without going through all the names, many, many, many others that have been very honest, dedicated people trying to help people. So I think sometimes the paranormal gets a bad rap because it's not well known by the public. And every time we do anything at the Sandown Meeting House or large groups of 80 to 100 people, it always amazes me how people that knew nothing about the paranormal will come up and say, thank you, that was so interesting, I never realized that before. Because, again, I think when you looked at, you know, Ghost Hunters and some of the TV shows, people watched them, but they watched them more for entertainment purposes than educational purposes.
Right.
And most of those shows...
Bob. Oh, my gosh.
And most of those shows were for entertainment purposes.
Right.
You know, the other thing, Deb, that, because we're coming up to the hour pretty short here, but, you know, Tom would tell you, and I would tell you, every one of us have had an experience in our 20-plus years of doing this that probably stands out more than any other experience. Mine was the child I told you about. That was so moving to me that I have never forgot that experience. The second thing for me is the Sandown Meeting House. I've said to people many times, it really has a spiritual connection to me. I don't know why.
Gosh, I love it over there. It's one of my favorite places.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah. I'm almost a Catholic.
They always welcome us there. And I say they in terms of the spirit and the energies that are there. They welcome Tom. They welcome you. You know, they welcome me. It's really awesome, actually. It really is.
It is.
Debbie, I believe actually, we'll do this real quick because it's coming top of the hour, but I believe when you've investigated a place like the Sandown Meeting House, Sandown Train Station, Hilldale Cemetery for me, Dustin Garrison House, Tenny Gate House, Bob, the countless places he's been to, Sandown, wherever, you know, all those places, they get to know who you are. You become like a friend to some of them. So they'll respect you, you respect them, and they'll come out for you.
Absolutely.
Right.
And you know, honey, you can feel it. It's a feeling that you have to experience it, that it just elevates, and it's weird. It's something that goes through your bloodstream. It could be goosebumps.
Right.
It could be, cold temperatures. It could be a breeze. But they let you know the happiness. Like, they're like, oh, my God, they're here. You know, they get so excited, especially because we're recognizing them. Can you imagine being on the other side or being, in this other, what we call dimensions or energies, and not being seen or heard from us? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So when they are and you get to communicate, how excited are they? Very excited. Some of them can be stubborn. Some of them want nothing to do with it, but they have the choice. They don't have to. But the ones who get so excited, you feel it like on your skin. It's awesome. It really is.
Yeah, that's really a great description, because I have gone up to the Sandown Meeting House on my own and sat there for an hour and a half with nobody else, just myself, because it really is so spiritual for me. I have a whole different feeling when I walk through those doors. It's amazing.
I know.
It really is.
Oh, my gosh. I love that you said that.
Well, listen, we're going to tell our listeners, we haven't locked it up yet, but hopefully in May, sometime in May, when the weather gets a little better, we're going to do a big event at the Sandown Meeting House. I hope, Debbie, you're going to be there. We're actually going to give the public an opportunity to meet and greet. So we haven't finalized all of the dates yet, but we will, and we'll certainly let you know the minute we hear anything.
Okay.
I know, Deb, you've got to run because you've got commitments to do, and I can't thank you enough for taking this hour or so with Tom and myself. This was a great show, and I think our listeners got a lot out of it. So thank you so much for sharing with us.
Thanks, Debbie.
Guys, you can reach out anytime.
All right.
Okay?
God bless.
I'm sure
God bless.
you in the future.
Yes, thank you very much, Debbie.
Thanks, Tom. Bye, Bob. Have a great
Bye,
day.
Deb. You know, Tom, she really is one of the best mediums I've talked to in a long time. There are a ton of them, by the way, in New England. I know there's a lot of good mediums out there. I'm partial to Deb because I've worked so close with her for 20 years. And the stories just keep going on and on. But she just is a great guest. She's just so knowledgeable.
No, she knows exactly what she's talking about, which is fun to hear.
Well, listen, this was another great show.
It was.
And I would tell our listeners, if they'd like to follow up, they can send an email to Paranormal, PARANORMALNH, one word, at yahoo.com. If you'd like to be a guest on our show, we'd love to have you. The way that Tom has set this up, you can call in from almost anywhere in the United States.
You can. Even England.
Comfort of your living room.
We could be international the way this is set up.
Yeah, I hope we are someday.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear from other countries to see what they do. And, the other thing is that we encourage the whole paranormal community, whether you're witches, Bigfoot, ghost investigators, mediums, psychics, witches, so forth.
UFO
Whatever
people.
you're interested in, call in. We'd love to put you on the air. I hope that our podcasts have proven that we're polite, we're interested, we want to hear your story, and it is your story. So we try to let our guests talk as much as they want, because that's what it's about. It's about airing this program so that listeners can get an education as to the different aspects of paranormal and the disciplines, but it's as important that you as a listener can call in and tell us your story. So
that is correct.
Send us an email at paranormalnh@yahoo.com. I promise I'll get back to you within a day, and we'll talk to you and see if we can't set you up to come on to the Paranormal Zone.
That is correct. Thank you, Bob. It was another great show. We had fun today.
Yeah, it's been great. I look forward to next week.
Next week's going to be great, too. And sooner or later, we'll have an exact time we'll be on, and we'll be going live. So that's going to be exciting.
Yeah.
Can't wait for that
It is
time.
exciting.
All right, then, guys. I
All
want to
right, Tom.
thank you. Thank you, Bob. I want to thank everybody for tuning into the Paranormal Zone.
And I think we got to give a shout out to Josh for what a great job he does.
Josh does a great job here at the studio. If it wasn't for Josh, we wouldn't have this Paranormal Zone on. So thanks, Josh.